Welcome back to my channel, team. Today's episode is a popular one, and what we're going to be doing for you today is I'm going to be unpacking the concept of introverts and extroverts. Now, I've always believed that if you can appreciate the variety of personality traits that we have out there and accept them for what they are, and understand really how people maneuver through their world, it can definitely improve your communications with different people. And since communication is more than just focusing on the words that leave our lips, I felt that this was a good topic to sit with for today. So how does understanding the personality traits improve our communication? Well, that's a really easy question to answer, because when you're dealing with people, which I personally think is more like handling live ammunition, you just never know when people are going to blow up in your hands, right? Relationships, they tend to do better when you're able to understand how people process information. It's no secret that full-blown conversations and the literature chatter that we have, they can both easily evolve into misunderstandings, and we know where that goes, right? But we can lessen these misunderstandings when we can actually formulate some sort of GPS or be able to navigate through understanding how people react to certain stimulation. Now, in the business sense, let's say you're leading a team, right? Now, I have led teams for, over 20 years, right? Sometimes I think some teams I've led maybe 10 or more people. I think the largest team I've ever led was like 15 people on my team at one time. That's a lot for one person. But so when it comes to leading a team, one of the recommendations that I make to the leaders is knowing your team members on an individual basis. And so that's because managing a team is not a one-size-fits-all. You have to know a couple of things. Well, you have to know, how do the individuals on your team interact with their team environment? So pretty much you need to know, how do they work alongside with other team members, right? Now, if you go back to their interview time when they were recruited for the job, chances are in the interview, you probably asked them if they are a good team player. And most people, because they bring their best selves to an interview, they probably said that they are a solid team player, right? The problem with that is, you find out that they're a difficult person to work with, but you find that out after they've passed the probationary period. And then at that point, it's probably too late to, make any adjustments to their employment. The next thing you need to know is, you need to know, how are they revitalized? And at this point, what we're talking about, you need to know, where does their energy source come from? So how do they stay motivated? How do they stay inspired, right? How do they stay connected to want to offer information or do better in their role, right? I've always said it would be so simple if we were all just light bulbs, and anytime our lights started to dim, we just screwed in another light bulb or screwed us in a little bit more tighter, right? But it's just not that simple. So, and lastly, it's a must to know how individually they process the information that's been given, right? So, when you're leading a team or you're talking to someone on your team, you don't want to waste time with them making mistakes, making assumptions on what they think they heard, right? So you got to understand, how does this person process information? That way you can deliver the information in the way that they process the information, right? So now, while all of this is useful information in the business sense, I'm going to tell you that this is probably a huge gold nugget when it comes to your interpersonal relationships. So again, if you're leading a team, like I said earlier, or you're just looking to improve your relationships, or you could just be like me and have always just been curious about human psychology, human behavior, then I will definitely encourage you to stay with me on this one, right? So let's start with a question that kind of creates the framework for the rest of the episode. Have you ever wondered why some people are just so content with being by themselves? Right? They enjoy their alone time. They enjoy finding a small corner and being, separated, disconnected from the crowd, and they're okay with that. Meanwhile, you have other people that are not okay with that. They are our social butterflies, and they're constantly buzzing, they're constantly moving, they're constantly staying active, right? And it's like they almost have a battery pack on their back that just stays plugged in. You wonder where all this energy comes from. And then if you tried putting those two types of personalities in the same room, they repel, right? Like two magnets, positive, negative. They just can't seem to get along. You have the quiet one wants to be left alone. You have the social one wants to talk. And then the social one gets confused, gets upset, or tries to help the quiet one because they don't understand why we are not interacting with each other. I want to talk. You want to be quiet. What's the problem here? But what if I told you that when you fully understand how these personality traits are wired, it's not to be taken personally. You'll then have a greater appreciation for each of their dispositions because it's just in their DNA. It's how they're wired. But first, let me first thank you, right? Let me first thank you for joining me today. I am Stacy Taylor. I'm a certified sales trainer, mentor, and coach. I've been in this role for about 26 years. And today I am going to be unpacking the personality traits for you. And so if what you just heard is intriguing and you want to improve your communication and you want to do it more than just in a verbal sense, but you want to have a better understanding of the human behavior, I have good news for you. I have done that research. So go ahead and press that like button and subscribe to my channel so we can stay connected and then you can get more. All right, so let's go ahead and start talking about these personality traits. Now, before I go down that rabbit hole, let me give you a quick history lesson. So the concept of introversion and extroversion was first created by one of the most influential psychologists of the early 20th century. His name is Carl Jung. That's Jung, okay? So the terms were first introduced so that he could have a better understanding of human psychology or the human behavior, which led to understanding personality traits. Now, initially, he formulated that humans were either one or the other, meaning you were either a quiet person who preferred to be reserved and withdrawn, or you were more of an open, outgoing, expressive individual, right? But as the years passed and more research was done to this concept, it was eventually modified to include another personality trait. And so continue watching the video because I will get into that a little bit later on. Now, a lot of people that I train, they ask for this topic because, like I mentioned earlier, they want to know how to better relate to their clients. And I've said that this is not always about sales. It is definitely more about bettering our communications with the people that we love and we have to interact with. And it also kind of places a bright spotlight on understanding why people react the way that they do, right? So let's go ahead and unpack these personality traits. All right, so away we go. Here you have two columns, and you have your introversion and your extroversion. And so for better note taking, I placed them on the screen So you can go ahead and take notes that gives you more of the specification on understanding introversion and extroversion. Now, I'll start with introversion. At its core, the introversion refers to the personality orientation that's characterized by an inward reflection, right? So those that prefer this sort of orientation, we call them introverts. So you start hearing me call them introverts throughout the rest of the video. Now, introverts are people that prefer environments that impose and give off low levels of external stimulation, right? So these people, they typically will be drawn to solitude because that's how they get their energy. So they prefer quiet interactions. They don't want to be part of the heightened influences or activities that draw a lot of attention, right? So your introverts, they tend to be also natural thinkers. And I don't mean overthinkers. They're just natural thinkers. And they really like to be in spaces where their thoughts can unfold uninterrupted. So that's why many introverts will gravitate towards careers where they get a chance to work in like a solo basis. They don't have to be involved with socializing with other employees. So we're talking about careers that fall in line with maybe a software developer, web developers, digital designers. Maybe they work in the IT department or even photography, right? Now, when it comes to introverts and processing their thoughts, if you happen to interrupt an introvert while they're processing things that they're thinking about, do not get your feelings hurt if they respond with an unfriendly reaction. And the reason why they do that is because you threw their thinking out of sync. So it threw them off. It's nothing to take personal. It's just to know that you threw them out of processing information mentally. But let's not confuse their separation from heightened influences as shyness or social anxiety. For the introverts, this is more about them processing information internally before expressing any reactions or emotions outwardly. So simply put, their alone time is their energy source. And I'll say that again. Their alone time, them being away from the crowds, being away from people, this is how they regain energy. Now, in contrast, your extroversion refers to those with an outwardly focus. Now, these individuals, again, throughout the rest of the video, you'll hear me call them extroverts. They are the ones that thrive. They love all stimulation that comes from the external world. So with your extroverts, they're going to gravitate towards careers in maybe sales. They'll be in some sort of sales profession. They'll also work in public relations. They will also be part of a lot of social media, maybe teachers, recruiters, kind of in those type of professions. So you get the idea. The extroverts are going to gain their energy through social interactions. And the social interactions that they look for will typically involve people, lots of various activities, and different types of social events and adventures. Now, need I say, these extroverts are your movers and shakers of society or of our community. Personally, I think that the world would be extremely boring without them. These are the people with the high level of assertiveness and They love to seek out new encounters, new adventures. They keep things fresh, they keep things new, they keep things exciting. All right, so let's start to bring these definitions into everyday life. And because if we can identify them in our everyday life, we can begin to see who is who a lot quicker. So let's consider how these traits behave in a social setting, right? So in a social setting, your introverts are the ones that's going to be attracted to closer to a quieter corner of this particular setting. They are the ones that's more open to having meaningful conversations, they may want to talk about politics, they may want to talk about, global warming, anything that is truly meaningful to the overall betterment of humans, if you will. And they want these conversations to be more in a smaller circle of friends. And they do that because they want to avoid sensory overload. Your introverts they may even retreat themselves to an area of the social setting where they can actually be by themselves. And they do that because when they're overstimulated, this can become overwhelming for them. And it's overwhelming because they begin to start feeling the pressure that they have to socialize, and they don't want to be pressurized into that particular type of feeling. But that's not to say they won't come back to the fold. It's just that the alone time that they have, it's going to offer them a chance to process information before initiating more conversations. Now, your extroverts, again, I call them they're like a battery to a car. They are going to glide through a room effortlessly, right? They're going to be looking to talk to everybody. They're the ones that's going to be shaking hands, kissing babies, and somehow become the center of attention. They are also going to be having round table of conversations, and they're going to be doing those conversations with multiple people. This is their energy source, guys. For an extrovert, this is how they stay stimulated. I always say that if you want to lose an extrovert as a friend, take them to a library. Now let's talk about the working environment. If an introvert is in a meeting, they will most likely be the quiet one. They will be the one that's holding back. And it's not that they're holding back because they're not engaged or they don't want to be engaged. They're reflecting on their thoughts before speaking. And while they're reflecting, they're processing information. They tend to be the ones that listen more intently first before speaking. And again, they do that because they want their responses to be more deliberate. So that silence and that holding back is what's helping them to choose the right words to say. Now, when you compare that to extroverts in that same meeting environment, your extroverts are the ones that's going to be blurting out spontaneous ideas. And when it comes to a group discussion, chances are your extroverts are the ones that's going to be actually leading it. Now, for the business sense, if you're creating a team, I would recommend don't putting an introvert in a group with a bunch of extroverts unless the group projects can allow them to work on a solo basis, right? So your extroverts, they're the ones that's going to engage in rapid expressions. And for them, thinking out loud will be something they're probably going to do a lot of. And actually, they're confused why most people don't do it. They're probably going to dominate a conversation. However, let's not confuse that domination because, they think they're all that. So it's not from an arrogant personality flaw. It's from more of them having a natural inclination of enjoying verbal sociability. All right, now, if you have a coworker or a friend that takes their time with making choices and they use caution with their decisions, And they also want to weigh the pros and the cons before moving forward. Most likely, they have introversion tendencies. Now, on the other side, if your friend is more of a quick decision maker and they use fluid discussions and they love bouncing ideals around with you, other people, the group, the team, chances are they have extroversion tendencies. Now, in the same working environment, if they have to work alone, let's identify what that looks like. Your introverts will be submerged in deep concentration. They're the ones that's going to be laser focused. Typically, they are going to excel in this sort of setting. And that's why, again, those computer jobs that I mentioned earlier is so appealing to them. Your extroverts, they're probably going to find working alone to be less fulfilling. They want to seek out interaction with other people because doing things alone is just not their jam. They prefer working in a lively, lots of movement office environment so that they get a chance to interact with other people. They get to talk. They get to just socialize. Extroverts were probably the ones that had the biggest challenge working from home during COVID, I would say. Now, let's address the modification I was talking about earlier. So, because of time and research, like I was mentioning, has shown that introversion and extroversion are not quite as static as Carl Jung may have thought. The personality traits actually exist on a continuum scale. It's a spectrum. And as you can see here on the screen, there are various degrees of combination. Research has also shown that personality traits are more of a tendency versus a fixed personality trait. And that is because our personalities, we don't fit into a box. We're all different. And what influences that is time. So as time goes on and we get older, it's a natural inclination that our environments are going to change. Guess what? So does our personality trait. Your introverts, what they made mistake from when they first introduced the concept, the introverts can be mistaken for people that have social awkwardness or having a lack of confidence. But they have also been known to become sociable when placed in familiar and comfortable surroundings. So for example, you can have this computer engineer who works alone for 8 hours a day, but then when he comes home, he looks forward to enjoying playing video games and watching movies with his family. And then you can have your extroverts. Again, they can be mistaken for those who need constant socializing. Well, I know of many motivating speakers who enjoy coaching the masses. I mean, they'll sell out huge auditoriums and enjoy just constantly talking, shaking hands, and just constantly meeting people. But the moment they get home, they put their phones on Do Not Disturb because they don't want to be bothered. So herein lies the theory of us being either an extrovert or an introvert has been debunked. It is a myth. You're not just one or the other. And that's because introverts can be skilled communicators and great leaders, just as extroverts can enjoy solitude and introspection. So this confusion was actually cleared up by author and psychologist Edmund Smith Conklin, and his research took place in 1923. And he was the one that proposed that more than half of the general population actually falls in the middle of the spectrum. So the middle ground. So as you can see here, the middle ground we call the ambiversion, or if you're talking about the individual, we call them ambivert. So ambiversion is the orientation of having both an introverted and an extroverted personality trait. So as you think about the definitions that I've just gone over, more and more you think about your own, you say, wait a minute, I like quiet time, but I also like to go out. So which one am I? Well, like I just mentioned, more than half of the general population starts at an ambiversion. So ambiversions are people that are comfortable navigating both traits. So when you identify that a personality trait can spend time with other people, enjoy spending time with other people, and they feel energized, but they also value their alone time, but they can easily adjust to either side of the spectrum, this is a dead ringer for ambiversion trait. When it comes to ambiversion, great news. If you are an ambiversion, which most likely you are, ambiversions are considered the most balanced personality trait. And the reason for that is because they are the most flexible. Their preferences and their energies can easily adapt to any situation, and they can do it without difficulty. So, for example, an ambiversion in society looks here's a good example. I have a friend at the office, and she loves to get together. In the office, she loves to brainstorm on all sorts of new ideas for the team. She wants to talk about how we can improve certain manuals, just certain training content. But then on the weekends, catch her at home alone, and she does that so she can paint. And she paints very well, right? So ambiverts will pick careers. So when it comes to their careers, they can go either way. So an ambivert will kind of be hard to determine on whether they are more extroverted or introverted. So your ambiverts will gravitate towards becoming a nurse, which is an outwardly role. Virtual assistants, which is more inwardly role. Financial advisor could be either side. Event planners can be either side, right? So when we talk about social settings, you're going to find that ambiverts, they love to mingle just like extroverts. And when it comes to mingling, if they have to go to a social event, they're going to glide right through the spot. But then during their mingling, they're going to find some time to retreat briefly. And they're doing that like an introvert. And they're going to be doing that some point during the event. But just like an extrovert with conversations, ambiverts, they can start up conversations too. But they can also retreat into a quiet demeanor to observe. Your ambiverts will tend to respond to contextual cues. So for example, after a long day at the office where they had to attend a lot of meetings, they might have had to do some luncheons during the week, chances are when they come home, initially they don't want to be bothered. But here's the key kicker. Before the night is over, they'll make some sort of connection because they still require that human interaction. So the key identifiers among the traits is going to lie in how they recharge their energy. So we all need to ask, do they do it with an inward or an outward stimuli? Now, I got one last nugget before going live with this. Now, here are 3 analyzing questions that you have to ask. 1, ask yourself, because you want to self-analyze first, how do you feel after social interactions? If you feel drained or stimulated, now if you feel drained, move the continuum scale towards the introversion side. And that would mean you are an ambivert with an introvert tendency. If you feel stimulated, then move it to the other side. And that means that you have extroversion, right? You are ambiversion or ambivert with an extrovert tendency. So, number 2, do you prefer large gatherings? Or do you prefer quiet one-on-ones? If you like large gatherings, move it towards the extroversion. If you like the small ones, your introversion. And then you want to ask, how often do you seek novelty in social situations versus solitude? If your social situations excite you, move it towards the extroversion. If it's solitude that you're looking for, move it towards introversion, right? So now let's land this plane with the key takeaways. Most of us fall in the ambiversion personality traits. Again, we are not one or the other. And based on how we regain energy will determine where we fall on the personality continuum scale. All right, guys, thanks for joining me today. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. See you next time. Stay blessed.